Hey guys, it's AJ with Design the Everything. Today we'll be looking at the sketch tools inside Fusion 360. Specifically, we will be making an improved clamp for a CNC router. This is what I currently have. This design was free somewhere on the internet. I do not remember where. Um, you simply stick a 1032 screw through there, and you can tighten this down to some screws inside the build plate. You also can put a riser block underneath one end to get higher up, and you can adjust it either way. I've had a couple problems with these. The biggest one being that they are too small. With my small CNC machine, the screw holes are just too far apart to really use one of these well. This thing is also not super flexible. You can only put it in one way. You can't there's not a lot of options when you're using one of these. So I want to go ahead and try to design a better version. Um, so we're going to do, this part will essentially be a 2D part. When it gets cut out, it'll be 3D. So we're going to look at the sketch tools for it. To make it, we're going to draw the 3D sketch, or excuse me, we're going to draw the 2D sketch, and then just do a simple extrusion out to make it three-dimensional. So let's go ahead and make a new sketch. Hit create sketch, and then choose a plane. So I'm going to choose the bottom plane because I just do that out of habit. I'm also going to do units, and I'm going to set this to inches. I generally prefer working in inches, but yet again, I have my handy dandy inch calipers with me, and it's just easier to all try to use the same units. So I decided earlier that I want this thing to be about 5 inches long and about 1.2 inches wide. So I'm going to go ahead and come up here and make a rectangle. So I'm going to hit sketch, rectangle, and I want to do a rectangle about the center point. It's just kind of a best practice to have the X, Y, and Z planes running through the center of whatever you're making and not the sides. When you start doing things that are symmetrical, you can do reflections about the center planes. It'll just save you time later. So to use the rectangle tool, as you saw, I just went down here, clicked rectangle, center rectangle. I click the center point, and then I click the edge point to define it. Then you hit escape to get out of that tool. Now I'm going to click sketch, come down here to sketch dimension. You may notice that little D there, that's the hotkey for dimension. I'm going to use that from now on because it's much quicker, but I'll make sure I tell you when I do that. So I'm going to click sketch dimension, and I'm going to put dimensions on here. So I'm just going to click the bottom line. That says 5.2. That was what I made it when I wasn't really paying attention. I'm just going to change that to 5. I'm going to hit 5 and then enter. And then I need the height, which I'm going to make as 1.2 inches. So I'm going to hit D for dimension, click on this line, and change that to 1.2. All right, so now I have my base rectangle here. So I decided I wanted a wider circle around about the center of this thing. Or actually, I'll probably do it offset over here to kind of reinforce the area where I put the screw through, or where I can put the screw through. I've broken a lot of these clamps, so one of the reasons I wanted to do this was to make it wider. Let's do 2-inch circle. I hit escape to get out of that tool. I'm going to hit D for dimension. D for dimension, click there. 2 inches, enter. All right, so now we have a circle on top of our rectangle. I think this needs to be a little bit wider. Proportions don't look quite right here. So I'm going to double click on the 5-inch dimension. Let's change that to 5.5 inches. So there we go. It automatically fixed all the geometry for me. I'm going to drag the circle over a little bit. Then I'm going to hit the D button for the dimension tool. Click the center of the circle, and then click the origin. And that just defined how far away that circle was from the origin. Now, if we tried to extrude it like this, it wouldn't work because we have these overlapping lines here. To do a valid sketch for extrusion, you have to have one continuous line going all the way around the outside without crossing over each other. So I'm going to come up here and hit Sketch, and then use the Trim command, which is T. I'm going to hit Trim, and I'm going to trim the inside lines here all the way around the circle, all of the ones I don't want, until we're back at one continuous shape. Now, you may sometimes doing this will break some intelligence and break some of your constraints, and it'll give you a warning when you do that. It shouldn't matter here because I'm not going to be moving that circle around. Just something to be aware of. Wait until the end to trim normally. So I'm going to make a hole, sketch, circle. I want a circle from center. There's a bunch of different circle options here. But we're going to do a circle from the center because I'm going to put that on the center of this circle so that they are concentric. Then I'm going to come over here. This is the 1032 bolt that I use to hook into my CNC machine. Here, I'll try not to do that in front of my face. And I'm going to measure it. So I could just look this up in a chart, but since I have my calipers, I read it as 0.190 inches. So let's see, what does 0.2 look like? That's what 0.2 looks like. Let's give it a little bit more slop. A 1/4 inch seems really comfortable. It's not going to be a tight fit. You aren't going to be, using this to hold an engine together or anything like that. It's just going to be putting a screw in. So I'm going to make that 0.25. There's my hole. I'm going to hit Escape to get out of that tool, and it already put the dimension in. So now let's go ahead and put a sliding slot for the, just like in this one. Just like in this one, there's that slot down it, so we're going to put one of those in. Let's go back to Inventor. Probably should have done that when I was doing the circle. Back to Inventor. There we go. And we're going to do the slot. So there's fortunately a tool to do that slot for us. It's right here, slot. You can either do it from center point to center point, the total slot length, or center point to one edge of the slot. We're going to do the overall length. So I don't really care where the center point is, I just care about the overall length. So I'm going to come down, click over here, and we'll add this about there. That looks reasonable. And we'll make this 0.25. All right, there's one slot. And then I was also going to put a little slot over here on this end. So let's do that again. Actually, let's make that slot differently. This is not necessarily the practical way to do it, but this is for teaching, not for doing things the practical way. So I'm going to come back up here to the rectangle tool. Let's do a 2-point rectangle and just kind of make that about the right size. And now we can come back. I'm going to hit D for dimension. I'm going to hit the top and the bottom and change that to 0.25. And I'm going to do the ends here. And that'll be, it's called 0.75. Now, we need to figure out how to place this right. So to do that, we are going to make a construction line. So to do a construction line, we're going to start off by going to the line tool. You could press L for line tool. So line tool. You see how that brings up a shape, that little triangle right there in the corner? That is saying that that is the midpoint of this line. So we're going to put that there, and we're going to drag this line all the way to the other side until we get that little triangle again. Okay, so now we have a line going down the center from midpoint of this line to midpoint of this line, which is exactly what we're looking for. So this is running through the center of our sketch. So we're going to click on that line now, and we are going to go over here to the sketch palette, and we are going to make that a construction line. So I'll move that back to the side. You see how that is a dotted line now, just like these lines that were automatically put in when we made the rectangle? That means this line is only being used for reference. So now we're going to put in a point. I'm going to hit sketch and go find a point. And I'm going to put this at the center point again. Remember that triangle means center point. So center point, center point. I'm going to hit escape to get out of that tool. Then I'm going to come back over here to the sketch palette, and I'm going to find the coincidence constraint. The coincidence constraint means that something is touching the other thing. In this case, it'll mean that a point is on the line. So I'm going to hit the coincidence button. I'm going to click on my center point, and I'm going to click on the construction line we just made. You could do that on the other side here if you weren't going straight up and down, but since it already knows that the rectangle is horizontal, it automatically did that. This little thing right here kind of looks like a toothbrush. That means horizontal. When it's vertical over here, that means it is vertical. So no matter what we do, we cannot make that not vertical. So I'm going to move my sketch palette back to the side, and that looks pretty good to me. There's still lots of room all the way around the edges. The shape looks good. Let's make these corners a little bit rounded. They don't need to be very rounded, but it'll help with stress concentrations, and it'll just look better and feel more comfortable. So we're going to go to Sketch, and there should be a fillet button. So a fillet is just a rounded corner. And to make this, you hit the fillet button, then you click on one corner, and then the other corner, and it will throw in a rounded side. Now over here, we can set the dimension for it. 0.3 feels a little extreme. Let's go with 0.25. That way no, let's go with 0.125. There we go. Now that curve is going to match that curve there, just because I can. So, oops. I'm going to go back to the fillet tool. I'm going to click there and there. Change that to 0.25. And just keep going. All right, so there's the four corners. Let's just fillet these corners for fun as well. See if we can smooth this out a little bit. So fillet, there. That 0.25 looks pretty good, so we'll just keep going for that. And I'm just going to click on all of them. And there we go. We have a nice rounded shape. So I'm going to hit Stop Sketch. That's what it looks like on the plane there. I'm going to hit the Extrude button. Notice the hotkey for that is E. So I'm going to hit E for Extrude. I'm going to select just the outside plane here. You'll see it turn blue. And then I'm going to drag it up. So my plywood is, I'm going to make it out of plywood. I have a bunch of 1/4 inch, just crappy construction grade plywood around, but it'll work pretty well for these clamps. You may notice that these ones I have here were made out of oak. I thought that would work better, but they had a tendency to split across the grain, like along this line here. So I'm going to make these out of plywood, because in plywood, the grain runs this way in one layer, and then this way in the other layer, so that it's kind of canceling out the weakness of the other layers. I'm going to hit OK. Oh, see, I accidentally hit an @ sign there. That's why that wasn't working. So 0.25, we'll try that again. Now I'm going to hit enter. And that's what our clamp's going to look like. I forgot to step over here. I was going to make that rectangle into a slot. But it's not too late. We can go back and edit that. So I'm going to, sorry, should have brought you back into Inventor. Or I'm sorry, Fusion. I'm going to double click on Sketch. And now we're back right where we left off on the sketch. I'm going to, so I want these to have rounded corners just like that slot. I got distracted last time. I'm sorry. I'm going to take the sketch drop down box, and this time I'm going to go for a circle, but not a center point circle. I want a 2-point circle. I'm going to do 1 point at the bottom, 1 point at the top, and now we have a circle that perfectly matches our rectangle. I'm going to hit escape to get out of that tool, and then I'm going to hit T for the trim tool and trim that all down. T for trim tool. Now you see these warnings down here. Oh, you can't see those warnings. Well, there were warnings underneath my face here, I promise. But when I trim them, here, can I move the warning? There's the warning. It's saying that some constraints or dimensions were removed. In this case, it removed my length dimension. So that doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to keep deleting those. Now I'm going to hit D for dimension, and I'll just dimension center point to center point. That'll make it happy. Enter. And let's try this again. So, all right, so here's our shape once it's extruded. Now, you may notice that little pocket there is missing. That's just because Fusion didn't like it when we changed it. It didn't recognize it as the same profile as before, so it just didn't extrude it. So to fix that, we're going to right-click on this here, and we are going to find Edit. So Edit, so we can edit either the sketch or edit the feature. In this case, we've already fixed the sketch, so we're just going to edit the feature. Now we're going to go back up here and choose Profile, and we are going to Shift-click that center point. So that's a deselect command. Shift-click is deselect. I'm going to hit OK, and it's back. So that's our clamp in the end. It's nothing fancy. There are quite a few out there like it. You can find them on Thingiverse or wherever you look. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out on my CNC machine and see how it does. All right, so the cut's done running. This is what it looks like. I didn't do anything to this except sand some of the edges a little bit. It looks pretty good. It's much bigger than the other one. Here's the other one. And the screw fits much looser in it, which will make my life a lot easier. Because before, on the old version, you had to like force that through, and some of them were tighter. This one is one that is worn down a little bit looser. So definitely a significant improvement. Ironically, the longest part in getting this to cut was getting it clamped to the build platform because I didn't have a clamp that was big enough. So having this, and I'll cut out probably 4 or 5 more of these, is gonna be super helpful. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you have any questions, please post them in the comment section below. And if you want to see the rest of my videos as they come out, please subscribe. I'm going to be doing another video very soon on how to convert the file into G-code to send to a CNC router. That is going to be a video aimed at more advanced users. But if you're interested, go ahead and find that video. Thank you very much.